The letter trembled in Elena's hands, its edges worn as if it had been opened and folded 100 times. "You're nothing to this family," it read, the words scrawled in her sister's sharp, unforgiving handwriting. At 28, standing in the dim light of her cramped Brooklyn apartment, Elena felt the weight of a decade-old wound rip open. 10 years ago, her sister Marissa had torn her world apart. At 18, Elena had come out as a lesbian to her conservative family in rural Virginia, expecting love, hoping for understanding. Instead, Marissa, her older sister by 3 years, had orchestrated a betrayal so cruel it left Elena with nothing but a suitcase and a one-way bus ticket to New York. Marissa had convinced their parents to disown her, claiming Elena's choice was a sin that shamed them all. She'd taken everything: Elena's inheritance, her place in the family, even her childhood photos, leaving Elena to rebuild from ashes. Now, the letter in her hand was Marissa's first contact since that day. "I need to see you," it said. "I'm sick. Please." Elena's heart pounded, torn between rage and a flicker of pity. She hadn't spoken to her sister in years, hadn't wanted to, but something in the word sick tugged at her, a thread of humanity she couldn't ignore. She tossed the letter onto her cluttered desk, next to a framed photo of her and Clara, her partner of 5 years. Clara, with her radiant smile and fierce loyalty, had become Elena's anchor in a city that often felt too big, too cold. They'd met at a poetry reading in Greenwich Village, where Clara's soft voice reciting Neruda had pulled Elena in like a tide. Now, as Elena paced the apartment, Clara emerged from the kitchen, her blonde hair tied loosely, her blue eyes catching the lamplight. "What's wrong?" Clara asked, her voice gentle but firm, sensing the storm brewing in Elena's silence. Elena handed her the letter, her fingers brushing Clara's, seeking comfort in the familiar warmth. Clara read it quickly, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "You don't owe her anything," Clara said, her tone protective. "Not after what she did." "I know," Elena whispered, but her voice cracked. "But what if she's really dying? What if I regret not going?" Clara pulled her into a hug, her cardigan soft against Elena's cheek. "Whatever you decide, I'm here. But don't let her hurt you again." The next morning, Elena stood at the edge of Prospect Park, her breath visible in the crisp autumn air. She'd agreed to meet Marissa, though every instinct screamed to run. She hadn't told her parents she was coming back to Virginia. They hadn't spoken since the day they'd called her an abomination. But Marissa's letter had mentioned a hospital, a surgery, a desperate plea. Elena couldn't shake the image of her sister, once her confidant, her protector, now frail and alone. The bus ride to Virginia was a blur of memories. Elena remembered Marissa teaching her to ride a bike, their laughter echoing through the fields. She remembered Marissa's face hardening at 21, her newfound piety turning her into someone Elena didn't recognize. By the time Elena came out, Marissa had already aligned herself with their parents' rigid beliefs, wielding their disapproval like a weapon. She'd convinced them to rewrite their will, leaving Elena nothing. "For your own good," Marissa had said, her voice cold as she handed Elena the bus ticket. Now, as the bus rolled into Richmond, Elena's stomach churned. The hospital loomed ahead, its sterile white walls a stark contrast to the vibrant autumn leaves outside. She checked her phone. Clara had texted, "You're stronger than you know. Call me if you need me." Elena smiled faintly, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Inside, the hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. Marissa was in room 304, the nurse said, her voice clipped. Elena hesitated at the door, her hand hovering over the handle. What would she find? The sister who'd stolen her family, her home, her past? Or someone broken, seeking forgiveness? She pushed the door open. Marissa lay in the bed, her once dark hair thinning, her face pale and gaunt. Tubes snaked from her arm to a beeping machine. At 31, she looked older, fragile, nothing like the fierce woman who'd cast Elena out. Her eyes fluttered open, and when she saw Elena they filled with tears. "Ellie," Marissa whispered, using the nickname she hadn't spoken in a decade. "You came." Elena stood frozen, her throat tight. "Why am I here, Marissa?" Marissa's lips trembled. "I have cancer. Stage 3. I need your help." Elena's heart sank, but her anger flared. "You took everything from me. My family, my home, my life. And now you want my help." Marissa's eyes dropped to the blanket, her hands twisting the fabric. I know what I did. I know I don't deserve this. But I'm scared, Ellie. And you're the only one I trust. The words hit like a punch. Trust? After all these years. Elena wanted to scream, to walk away, to let Marissa face the consequences of her choices. But something in her sister's voice, raw, desperate honesty kept her rooted to the spot. I don't even know where to start, Elena said, her voice low, shaking. You broke me. Marissa nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you'll let me. Elena didn't respond. She sat in the chair by the bed, her mind racing. Could she forgive? Could she even try? The room felt suffocating. The beeping of the machines a relentless reminder of time slipping away. Elena stared at the hospital ceiling, its tiles a monotonous grid that mirrored her spiraling thoughts. Marissa's plea hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a decade's worth of pain. Forgiveness felt like a betrayal of her younger self, the girl who'd been cast out for loving differently. I sold everything, Marissa said softly, breaking the silence. The house, the land, Mom and Dad's savings. It's all gone. For the surgery. Elena's eyes snapped to her sister. You sold everything? The words felt surreal. The family home, the sprawling Virginia farmhouse where they'd grown up, was gone? The place where Elena had once dreamed of a future. Now just a memory auctioned off to pay for Marissa's treatment? It was the only way, Marissa continued, her voice barely above a whisper. The medical bills. They're crushing. I didn't have a choice. Elena's mind reeled. She wanted to feel vindicated, to revel in the irony of Marissa losing the very thing she'd stolen. But all she felt was a hollow ache. Why didn't you call Mom and Dad? She asked, though she already knew the answer. They haven't spoken to me since I told them I was sick, Marissa admitted. They said it's God's punishment. For what I did to you. Elena's breath caught. Her parents' rejection of Marissa mirrored her own, a cruel echo of the past. She wanted to hate them, to hate Marissa, but the pain in her sister's eyes was too real, too human. I don't know how to do this, Elena said, her voice cracking. I don't know how to be here for you when you weren't there for me. Marissa reached out, her hand trembling, but Elena pulled back. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Marissa said. I need you to know I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was scared and stupid, and I let them turn me against you. Elena stood, pacing the small room. You didn't just turn against me, Marissa. You erased me. You made me feel like I didn't deserve to exist. Marissa's sobs filled the room, raw and unfiltered. I know, she choked out. I see it now. I see you. And I see how strong you are. How you built a life despite everything I took. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Clara again. You okay? The text read. Elena typed a quick not sure and shoved the phone back. Clara was her safe harbor, but right now she was adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. Tell me about her, Marissa said suddenly, her voice soft. The woman in the photo you posted online. The one with the blue eyes. Elena froze. She'd almost forgotten Marissa followed her on social media, a silent observer of the life she'd tried to destroy. Clara, Elena said, her voice warming despite herself. She's everything. She's kind, fierce, and she loves me in a way I never thought I deserved. Marissa smiled faintly, a ghost of their childhood connection. She sounds perfect for you. She is, Elena said, her tone sharp. And she's why I'm still standing. Not you. Not Mom and Dad. Her. The room fell silent again, the weight of truth settling between them. Elena's anger was afire, but beneath it, a small part of her wondered if Marissa could change. If they could rebuild something from the ruins. Over the next few days, Elena stayed in Richmond, renting a cheap motel room near the hospital. She visited Marissa daily, though each conversation was a tightrope walk between resentment and compassion. Marissa shared stories of her diagnosis: breast cancer, aggressive, requiring a mastectomy and chemo. She spoke of her loneliness, her regret, her attempts to make amends by selling the family assets to cover her treatment. Elena listened, torn between wanting to believe her sister and fearing another betrayal. She called Clara every night, her voice a lifeline across the miles. I don't know what I'm doing here, Elena confessed one evening, curled up on the motel bed. You're being human, Clara said, her voice steady through the phone. You're giving her a chance, even if she doesn't deserve it. That's who you are. Elena's eyes stung with tears. What if I can't forgive her? Then you don't, Clara said simply. But you're there. That's more than most people would do. By the end of the week, Marissa's surgery was scheduled. Elena sat in the waiting room, her stomach knotted as the hours ticked by. She thought of Clara, of the life they'd built together, the cozy apartment, the late-night talks, the way Clara's laughter could light up even the darkest days. She thought of her younger self, the girl who'd been told she was wrong for loving a woman. And she thought of Marissa, flawed and broken, reaching for redemption. When the doctor emerged, his face was grim but hopeful. She's stable, he said. The surgery went well, but the road ahead is long. Elena nodded, relief mingling with exhaustion. She didn't know what came next, but for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of possibility. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. Back in Brooklyn, Elena sat across from Clara at their small kitchen table, a steaming mug of tea between them. The city hummed outside, a comforting contrast to the sterile quiet of the Richmond hospital. Elena had returned home after Marissa's surgery, needing space to process the whirlwind of emotions. You look like you're carrying the world, Clara said, her hand reaching for Elena's. Elena managed a tired smile. Feels like it. She recounted the hospital visits, Marissa's apologies, the sale of the family home. Clara listened, her blue eyes steady, grounding Elena as always. Do you think she's genuine? Clara asked, her tone neutral but curious. I don't know, Elena admitted. Part of me wants to believe her. But the other part? It's still 18, hearing her say I'm a disgrace. Clara squeezed her hand. You don't have to decide now. You can take your time. Elena nodded, but time felt like a luxury she didn't have. Marissa's recovery was uncertain, and each call from the hospital brought a fresh wave of guilt and obligation. She wanted to hate her sister, to let the past stay buried, but Marissa's vulnerability had cracked something open in her. I need to understand, to heal, even if it hurt. A week later Marissa called. Her voice was stronger, tinged with hope. They're discharging me tomorrow, she said. I'd like to see you again. If you're okay with it. Elena hesitated, her thumb hovering over the phone. I'll think about it, she said finally, her voice guarded. She spent the next day wandering Brooklyn, her thoughts a tangle of memories and questions. She passed the park where she and Clara had shared their first kiss, the memory warming her despite the autumn chill. Clara had been her rock, her proof that love could be safe, could be home. But Marissa's reappearance threatened that stability, stirring up doubts Elena thought she'd buried. When she returned home, Clara was waiting with takeout from their favorite Thai place. Talk to me, Clara said, setting out plates. What's going on in that head of yours? Elena sighed, pushing rice around her plate. I keep thinking about what Marissa said, that she trusts me. After everything, why me? Why now? Clara leaned forward, her gaze intense. Maybe because you're the only one who ever saw her for who she could be, not who she was. The words hit Elena hard. She'd always been the dreamer, the one who believed in second chances, even when it hurt. But could she extend that to Marissa? The next weekend, Elena flew back to Virginia. Marissa was staying in a small apartment, a far cry from the sprawling farmhouse of their childhood. The space was sparse with boxes stacked in corners, remnants of a life sold off to pay for survival. Marissa looked better, though still frail, her eyes brighter than before. Thank you for coming, Marissa said, her voice soft. She gestured to a chair, and Elena sat, her posture stiff. Why am I here? Elena asked, echoing her question from the hospital. Marissa took a deep breath. I want to make things right. Not just with words. I've been talking to a lawyer. I want to give you what's left of the inheritance. Elena blinked, stunned. There's nothing left. You said you sold everything. There's some money, Marissa said. Not much, but it's yours. It was always yours. Elena's throat tightened. The gesture felt like too little, too late. Yet it carried a weight she couldn't ignore. I don't want your money, she said, her voice sharp. I wanted my family. Marissa's face crumpled, but she nodded. I know. and I can't give you that. But I can try to be your family again. If you'll let me." The words hung between them, fragile and uncertain. Elena wanted to reject them to protect herself from more pain. But she saw something in Marissa's eyes, a flicker of the sister she'd once loved, the one who'd braided her hair and shared her secrets. "I need time," Elena said finally. "This doesn't erase anything." "I know," Marissa said. "But I'll wait. As long as it takes." Elena left the apartment feeling lighter, though she couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe it was the possibility of closure, or the realization that Marissa's regret was real. She called Clara that night, her voice steadier than it had been in weeks. "I think I want to try," Elena said. "Not for her but for me. To let go of the anger." Clara's smile was audible through the phone. "That's my girl," she said. "You're doing this on your terms." Months passed, and Elena found herself in a delicate dance with Marissa. They texted occasionally, small steps towards something resembling connection. Marissa shared updates about her recovery, her chemo sessions, her attempts to rebuild her life. Elena responded cautiously, her words measured but not unkind. Clara watched it all with quiet pride, though she never pushed Elena to move faster than she was ready. "You're healing," she said one evening as they walked through Prospect Park, their hands entwined. "Not just for her but for you." Elena nodded, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her," she admitted. "But I don't want to carry this hate anymore." Clara stopped, turning to face her. "You don't have to. You're allowed to let it go, piece by piece." Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss, the kind that reminded Elena why she'd fought so hard to build this life. Clara was her home, her future, her proof that love could triumph over pain. Meanwhile, Marissa's health improved, though the cancer's shadow lingered. She started volunteering at a local LGBTQ+ center, a small act of atonement that surprised Elena. "I want to understand," Marissa wrote in one text. "I want to make up for the harm I caused." Elena didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as too little, too late. But another part saw Marissa's effort as a sign of change, however imperfect. One spring day, Marissa invited Elena and Clara to Virginia. "I want you to meet someone," she said over the phone, her voice nervous but warm. Elena hesitated, but Clara's gentle nudge convinced her. "Let's go," Clara said. "If it's too much, we leave together." They arrived at Marissa's apartment to find her with a woman named Sarah, a volunteer from the LGBTQ+ center. Sarah was warm and kind, with a quick laugh that put Elena at ease. Over dinner, Marissa shared her story, her regret, her journey to acceptance, her desire to be better. Sarah listened, her hand resting on Marissa's, a quiet gesture of support. Elena watched them, her heart a mix of emotions. She saw echoes of her own love with Clara, but also the sister she'd lost, now trying to find her way back. "I'm proud of you," Elena said later, surprising herself. "It's not easy what you're doing." Marissa's eyes welled up. "I don't deserve that. But it means everything." As they drove back to Brooklyn, Clara reached for Elena's hand. "You okay?" she asked. Elena nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Yeah, I think I am." The months that followed were a slow rebuilding. Elena and Marissa talked more, their conversations less guarded. Marissa sent Elena old family photos she'd salvaged, small pieces of a past Elena thought she'd lost forever. Elena shared stories of her life with Clara, her work as a graphic designer, her dreams of starting a family. One day Marissa called with news. Her cancer was in remission. "I want to celebrate," she said. "With you and Clara. In New York." Elena agreed, and when Marissa arrived, they spent a day exploring the city's Central Park, a cozy bookstore, a cafe where Clara read poetry. For the first time, Elena felt a flicker of the sisterhood they'd once had, fragile but real. As they sat on a park bench, Marissa handed Elena an envelope. "It's not much," she said, "but it's the last of what I owe you." Elena opened it to find a check, small, but enough to cover a few months' rent. "You didn't have to," she said, her voice soft. "I did," Marissa said. "It's not about the money. It's about doing what's right." Elena looked at her sister, seeing not just the woman who'd hurt her, but the one who was trying to make amends. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. A year later, Elena stood in the same Brooklyn park where she'd first grappled with Marissa's letter. The air was warm, the trees blooming with spring's promise. Clara stood beside her, their fingers laced, a diamond ring glinting on Clara's hand. They'd gotten engaged the month before. A quiet moment filled with tears and laughter. Marissa was there too, healthy now. Her smile brighter than Elena had ever seen. She'd moved to New York, taking a job at the LGBTQ+ center, and building a life with Sarah. The sisters weren't fully healed, some scars ran too deep, but they were trying step by step. "I'm sorry I missed so much of your life," Marissa said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I'm here now. If you'll have me." Elena looked at her, then at Clara, whose eyes shone with love and pride. "We're family," Elena said simply. "That's what matters." The three of them walked through the park, talking about the future, Elena and Clara's wedding, Marissa's work, the possibility of reconciliation with their parents. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. That night, Elena sat at her desk, the letter from a year ago tucked into a drawer. She didn't need to read it anymore. Its weight no longer defined her. She'd built a life filled with love, resilience, and hope, not because of her past but despite it. Clara slipped behind her, wrapping her arms around Elena's shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, her breath warm against Elena's ear. "How lucky I am," Elena said, turning to kiss her. "And how far we've come." Marissa's betrayal had stolen so much, but it hadn't stolen Elena's capacity to love, to forgive, to grow. The money from the sold family home had paid for Marissa's surgery, but it was Elena's heart that had paid for their second chance. As they stood together, watching the city lights flicker through the window, Elena felt a quiet certainty. She'd reclaimed her story not by erasing the pain, but by writing a new chapter, one where love, in all its forms, won. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.